So what I want to do basically is explain you what we have done in the last few months, and I think some of you have noticed, and where we're heading next. So let me look a little bit at what just has happened with our announcement. So what we decided basically at the beginning of the year, was end of January, that we want to basically make navigation, car navigation, pedestrian guidance, as well as mapping, a core feature of a phone, just like a camera, right? So essentially, you buy a Nokia handset, you get a certain value from the camera or from other hardware elements. Now we basically can claim that when you buy a Nokia handset, you get navigation. We actually, right after the announcement, did have the fact that people went to the store and said, can I buy the phone with navigation? So people expect the phone to have navigation. We didn't think into having a base product and a premium product. We basically have in the base offer that comes, at no extra cost out of the box, the full premium data set of Navtec. So there is actually no, kind of playing with the attributes, and traffic and everything else is involved as well. We did this in one day on 12 handsets in 180 countries with navigation in close to 80 countries in 50 languages. And I'll come to the numbers a little bit later. In addition, and a little bit more on that later, we're adding more content layers on the product itself. Now, when we look at what does it do, it's basically a full P&D, Garmin, TomTom class of product in a device with the displays getting bigger. I think the ability on the difference to a classical P&D is going, of course, down. And we, of course, have the additional benefits of being always connected. We're collecting now GPS probes, driving behavior, patterns, traffic profiles around the world. And we will have soon the critical mass to basically do traffic services in countries you've never heard before, like Mexico City, based on the flow data that we're collecting. So we're giving a lot back to the community. It was one of the reasons why we decided to put traffic in from the very beginning. So you really have the full benefit of all the attributes of Navtec. Pedestrian guidance, something that's very important for Nokia. You will see a lot more investments there coming from us. We will go into the buildings. We will go 3D. We are mapping, our colleagues from Navtec. They're really walking through parks. They're mapping escalators, elevators. The whole address resolution within buildings will basically grow. So basically, it really takes you the shortest path to any place in the city. Again, something we believe people will use daily. It actually has been a service that is not quite as much used yet as the drive navigation, but is really up there already as something people rely on. A few facts on the launch. So basically, we're downloading roughly 100,000 applications a day. We're starting this week or the week, actually last week we started having the application pre-installed on the handsets. So this will ship on millions of phones over the next quarters. But we get 100,000 people a day downloading a 10 megabyte apps to their phones. We have 74 countries. You can see the lead countries are China. I think we're bringing navigation to China. So a lot of people in China are navigating now on Nokia handsets. And we're doing this pretty much on our entire smartphone range with no exceptions. So really very, very strong demand there. I think we just checked this morning. We just passed the 7 million mark of downloads since the launch in the last week of January. And as said, from now on, it's pretty much pre-installed on all the handsets from the factory. People like it. People in particular like the fact that we didn't take a compromise on quality, that we really gave them the full benefits, and that we really, it was very important for us. Nokia is a company that has a global promise. For us, it was not an option to have navigation in one country, on one phone, in one language. For us, it was very important that we bring this whole thing out basically as a feature that you can expect with your phone wherever you go. And, I just listened before to Tim, and it was a very interesting statement he made. As a company, you need to try to create more value than what you capture. I'm in this business since 10 years. I remember about 6 years ago, a GPS Bluetooth mouse was about $80 in wholesale and maybe $120 in retail. Today, it costs a few cents on a phone, right? That's what scale of Nokia does. One of the reasons why we made the Navtec acquisitions a few years ago is because with our volume, we can do exactly that. We can create a lot of value per user, right? Without having to ask a lot, because we have fixed costs we can amortize the volume against. And that's why we have made that decision. And it's now up to the consumers to say, do we buy more Nokia handsets and do we buy Nokia handsets the higher value? But at the moment, the trend is very, very positive for us. So it actually is also a really, really good business for us. At the same time, it comes at very little incremental value or cost for the individual consumer, but it has a value of a couple €100 when you compare it to a Garmin or a TomTom. Now, I think when it comes to the volumes, Nokia today is undisputed leader in a global scale, especially when you look at what we're doing in India. Our navigation and mapping software works completely offline, so we can put it on S40 handsets in India where you don't have a data network. We don't depend on the data network. It's powered by the NAVTEQ map, which is an industrially captured map. It's a high-quality map. It's a map that is really perfect. I always say when you navigate from San Francisco to Seattle, and there's one road element in there not correct, you may have half an hour detour. So it's a big difference whether you capture an industrial asset like a map, where everything has to be perfect, versus, let's say, as an example, Wikipedia, where one entry and other entries are unrelated. So you need to really capture this together to make sure that you get a lot of the value. And I'll come back why the free navigation is also a great story for developers, but for sure, a great foundation. So I think that closes the chapter, especially for people like me who have joined Nokia about 3 years ago through an acquisition, being a very small startup, similar to you, with about 40 people. Now we essentially made navigation a core feature of every smartphone that we sell, and we're talking hundreds of millions of phones over the next couple of years. The coverage is about that we reach about 1.6 billion people on the planet can buy an NAVTEQ handset and get free navigation. So the next phase is clearly about the stuff that happens on top of the map, right? It's no longer about the map itself. It is really about, the people you want to meet. It's about the places you want to go. That's where our investments will go. Of course, third-party developer being a really crucial element of this one. We already have started with this a little bit. As an example, we have, as part of the current product, over, I think it's now 25 services that come with the product. So when you get the Nokia handset, you'll get free out of the box. Again, you get Lonely Planet guides for all major destinations in the world. You get timeout, hotel reservation. So we're working very, very actively with media companies to redefine their business models in the mobile context to make it very, very easy for them to actually build a new business. At the same time, it's a first step. I'll say a little bit more about what's coming next. It's basically using the phone as a publisher. I really think that, yes, it's nice to do a check-in, it's nice to send an image, but I think the stories that you will generate on these phones are going to be complete journeys with media, attached to traces. It's going to be, very contextual media that's going to contain, the compass information and many other elements. So we're working a lot on creating very, very powerful stories that you can share then with people on social networks. And some of you maybe have noticed we did the acquisition of Plum last year. We also feel it's very important that you want to share some of those stories just with your friends and families. So you want to really go for intimate communication. I'm not sharing too much fun about skiing with everybody on Twitter and Facebook because I don't want my colleagues to feel bad, but I share it with some of my friends. So that's very important that we also add that element of communicating with the people that really matter to you. So let's look at this example in a little bit. There is now an app on Facebook. It's just the first social network. Others will follow. And you are basically able to push the story of where you are, what you do there, and you then can also see it from your friends. So that's basically all integrated, the OV Maps application into Facebook. And I think at the moment we're seeing about, every second we're seeing basically a push to Facebook right now from, a very first step. It's not yet really done in a very easy way. I think we're improving that over the next quarters. But we believe the same way people are using now mapping every day, they will soon use this device as a way to push stories into the social networks. So as you see here, we have paid a lot of attention in moving from, I would call it an application to a platform where we really have defragmented the user interface and made the core use cases like walking and driving very, very simple. So we're creating room for more. And that basically is really about now saying we're using the distribution power of OV Store. At the moment, we're doing about 22 app downloads on OV Store per second. About 1.5 or almost 2 out of that is actually OV Maps if you do the math. So basically, we really have a strong distribution power around the world, and now we want to combine that. Now, the point is very logical. It is going from an application, which was a standard mapping application, what we did in 2007 and 2008, to get it to run in 180 countries, to make sure, you can run it in India, in China, in all the markets is very, very difficult. Then go to a service platform and now basically open up the ecosystem. We believe, and maybe a few words on that one, that we need to define a new class of apps. So we have shown this last year at Nokia World. We were working with event companies, news companies, public transport companies, in helping them to figure out what should a contextual app do. Right? I will come later to a public transport app. So a contextual app is not redefining your mobile or your web app. You actually have to figure out how you use the context. So for example, you see here on the left-hand side is an event app, and it's follow your band, which is the theme of the application. So rather than just looking at events, you can look at how your band roams around in your country. You pick then the city where you want to go and attend. So really the key is to go away from coding, go to publishing, to really make it very, very easy for the publishers, the content companies, to get their content on the mobile handsets. That's why we believe web runtime and web technologies is at the foundation for building contextual apps, and that's where we are investing, and that's where we will see the SDK coming out. Again, from generic to contextual, just let me make you one example here. It's a very simple public transport app, right? Public transport websites are actually quite complicated, but ultimately they're very simple of what you do, right? You have stations, and you want to know when is the train coming, and you have trains, and you want to know when you are getting to a certain station. So this app is very simple. It takes you basically your current position, it takes your behavior in the next phase, and then it basically immediately gives you the schedule of the next public transport station. And over time, as it learns where you're going, it may be then limited to the trains that depart from you. You can also see in the application the delays. You can see the real-time behavior of your trains. So a very, very useful application. As an example, this application took about 1 man-month to build with the kind of toolkits that we had. So very, very simple, using the same backends as Deutsche Bahn had. So basically, we have really put in the foundation now to build a global, I would call it LBS platform, and it's going to grow into a global contextual platform. So you will have in the SDK, so developers will get hooks for navigation, for pedestrian guidance that they can integrate into their application at no extra cost because it's already part of the platform. So you can use messaging, you can use share, you can use mapping, and all of these hooks in your applications without any extra cost because the platform is actually becoming a service, or I would call it a cloud-enabled phone. The tools will be very simple. It will basically be SDK based on web technologies. It's just very simple JavaScript extensions. And you, of course, get the OV store channel for the distribution of those applications. So really, I think all the pieces are now working, and they're not working in one country. They're really working globally. And that was pretty much the message. We really have gone from making this car navigation and mapping a feature of a phone, and now basically taking that platform and opening it up for developers to cover basically the media and the functional niches on top of that platform. That was pretty much all I had to say. As said, you can engage into the closed beta programs at Nokia, can get a first exposure to those SDKs. The website should actually lead you to that. It leaves me 1 second. Thank you.